There's a local for-profit enterprise that has contract with the village to provide the service, install it, and maintain the systems. And the role that we're playing is really threefold. One is to provide some of the seed capital to demonstrate a proposition. Will this work in Ghana? Will it work more broadly in West Africa? Let's start to understand what those cost issues are, but also a benefit that an organization, Safe Water Network, can play is to understand what the health outcomes are. So not be focused purely on delivering water, but also understanding how, in fact, is the water used, and does it result in health and socioeconomic benefits?
Thank you, Kurt. Chuck, you brought up a very important issue that in the areas that there is no shortage of water, not necessarily drinking water, the challenge is not so much water, it's energy. And I must admit that in many of the water discussions and venues that we go, we purely focus on water, neglecting the energy requirement. And even going to areas that water is short, but the source of energy is not available either there. Would you please elaborate on that paradigm? Because I feel that in a future meetings, that this is for Dr. O, that we need to probably carve out some time to look at the combination of water and energy. My apologies, Chuck, for dragging this question too long, but when you look at the parallel in energy production, electricity, it's very easy to transmit it. You can generate electricity in Boston and transmit it into New Mexico, no problem. The networks is very well connected. The problem is the storage of those energy. In water, it seems to me that we are having the other way around problem, that there is plenty of water in some places, but storing and transmission might be a challenge there. Going back to the paradigm of energy and the water, would you please elaborate on that?
I think first of all, the comment that water doesn't transmit very well is absolutely true, and that's why there's not a global water market, is because typically water sources have to be local, and you have to sort of live with your local source. The idea of transmitting water over a long distance is not economical based on what we pay for water today. I think the bigger challenge, though, that we have, and this is sort of a global challenge, is to really make people understand the amount of energy that it takes for water and wastewater treatment, and also what the carbon implications of that are, because they really are tremendous. And one of the challenges that we have at Siemens is trying to develop a water system for rural Africa. And one of the challenges there is that we don't have an energy source. What we've tried to do is come up with a solar panel that really has three functions. It can provide a cellular phone recharge station, because Africa's never going to have the kind of phone lines we have, so it provides battery recharge for cellular phones. It provides a battery source for lights, so that people don't have to burn kerosene lamps. They can go to a flashlight, and it can be recharged at this station, at the kiosk. And then the third thing is it provides an energy source to run a small water purification plant. And the delivery mechanism, once you get outside the developed world and as we go forward, is going to be much different than it is in the developed countries. I think you'll see a lot more point of use, and all those things end up minimizing the amount of energy required. But I think as we talk about water and wastewater in the future, it's very important that we balance out the energy requirement.
Thanks, Chuck. Well, next question goes to Sharon. When we look at the challenges in water environment, we can see that everybody is looking at it from a different angle. I come from a healthcare side of view, and infectious diseases on top of my list when I look at the water. Somebody like Siemens looking at the larger scale deployments. We have companies focusing on filter design for water recovery. But frankly, I don't think we have looked at this as a multidimensional, multifactorial problem to optimize the entire problem rather than dealing with different aspects of this. and IBM being so good in optimization modeling, what is your view on that, and how do you propose that the community should approach as a whole solution rather than piecewise solution to this?
Well, that's one of the areas where we think there's a huge benefit for IBM actually jumping into this water space. And I think there's two areas, as you mentioned, Mustafa. One is this optimization. Understanding the problem from an end-to-end basis is a big challenge. Where the water is available, how much is available, how much is being distributed, where it's being distributed to, what the multiple end users are requiring. We think of it as a supply chain problem. I mean, if you think about it from an end-to-end, you have it here and you want to get it here, think of it as a supply chain, just as you would any physical goods, that you're selling as a retailer. And, if you put all those pieces together, you can look at the trade-offs and create an optimization model. And the optimization will depend on, the local geography, as we've heard. It will depend on who's looking at, who wants the answer. So part of what we're trying to do, we have actually a project going on in California right now where we're trying to bring together multiple water utilities, all in the same watershed, and provide them a capability of integrating all of their information into one platform so they all see the same information and they can make a decision that is based on the water availability. And I don't have to reiterate the issues that California is facing now with the water drought they've had for the last several years. But they have multiple competing users, as we've seen in the front page of some newspapers. And if they don't understand the total picture of the watershed, it's very difficult to do that. It's a very emotional subject. I think even if you're not involved in it as we are in this room, it's a very emotional subject, as I've learned when I talk to my neighbors even about it. But if you have the same information, you can make a better decision, right? So it's one version of the truth, we hope, that will be provided to multiple stakeholders that get you around a table and have a discussion that's based on facts, for the most part. This issue of modeling, too, I think the more information that's available, what we're finding is, in one area, one of our partners said they found 200 stakeholders in one watershed region. So imagine those 200 stakeholders. Sometimes the data is on someone's piece of paper on the desk. Sometimes it's in maybe an Excel spreadsheet. Sometimes, if you're lucky, it's actually in a web-based form that's accessible to others and it's shared. Typically not integrated, typically not on the same standards, not on the same type of data format that you would want so that you can actually, integrate that information easily. So these are all issues that we deal with in many other parts of the world. Healthcare is a great example of that. Just trying to get the information based on standards and to actually create a system where, back to a policy discussion, where the information is based on an open system so that actually can be integrated with the right security protocols around it. There's not a problem with who accesses the data. That is set at the back end. We do a lot of work with banking, so we have quite a lot of confidence that we can provide secure access to people who want to only share a part of their data. But it is about this whole issue about sharing information, back to my earlier comment.
Thank you, Sharon. In other words, you can achieve a lot of efficiency with what we have right now without further, I would say, investment, if you optimize the value chain there. We have a question over there, please. That gentleman with, yes. Go ahead. The gentleman behind you, you're next.
I just want to build on the discussion regarding the energy-water nexus. There's been an NSF grant proposal that I think over 80 institutions in the U.S. are now competing for on water footprinting. So I think we're heading into that conversation this year, which is great to see. Looking at carbon mitigation, how that's going to impact water consumption. And I saw the IBM report. I think that looks really fantastic. The other comment I want to make, I worked in the private sector for a couple years with a global firm called Arup. And we did something quite unique, and I think companies like IBM and Siemens can really take note of this in terms of capacity building in a sense. And I think IBM is starting to with their corporate service core. As part of the 60-year anniversary, we created a global fund called the Arup Cause. So rather than supporting parties in the different offices for celebrating the 60th anniversary, a fund was created to support staff in working on water and sanitation access in developing countries, working with different NGOs.